Stoker is, I think, deliberately vague about where the West Enders live. He has a letter dated from Hillingham, which is either the name of the house or the name of the district. It could be near Hampstead. The most recent annotated Dracula suggests near Hampstead, which would account for the suburban details of the house. But it's supposed to be near Liverpool Street, which is where Van Helsing stays because he says it's convenient. And I personally would have put it near Regent's Park.
Even in Stoker's day, the leafy London suburb of Hampstead was associated with artists, scholars and authors. And, just as it is today, it was one of London's more exclusive areas.
The district of Hampstead was very respectable. There were some good houses there. It's certainly a possible location for Lucy and her family. Hampstead Heath was, of course, the place where Lucy marauds looking for little victims, the children who call her the Bloofer Lady, the beautiful lady who decoys them away and then bites their throats. And some of her victims are found in a slightly desiccated condition on Hampstead Heath. Hampstead Heath is still wild enough for something like that to happen without anyone noticing for a while, I think.
While at Hillingham, Lucy's health continues to deteriorate and she becomes critically ill. Despite Van Helsing's best efforts to save her, on the 20th of September, Lucy dies, inexorably condemned to become one of Dracula's undead. For many years, it is believed that Stoker based Lucy's final resting place on Highgate Cemetery, which is less than 2 miles from Hampstead. In recent years, this theory has been reinforced by a number of vampire films that have used the cemetery as a location.
In the novel, Lucy is buried in Kingstead Cemetery. There is no such cemetery, but I think it's an amalgamation of various cemeteries and graveyards around Hampstead. We're told it's a walk from Jack Straw's Castle, the pub, and that it's close enough to Hampstead Heath for Van Helsing to be able to carry one of her victims, and it's not a baby in arms, it's a toddler, to Hampstead Heath to leave it there to be found by the police. So it can't be that far away, and we're also told it has a low wall around it. So it's not Highgate Cemetery, but it could be Highgate Cemetery, and it could be any number of small graveyards in the immediate area, but it isn't. It's a cemetery of the mind, or a graveyard of the mind which Stoker has invented.
With its labyrinth of Victorian graves, mausoleums and overgrown avenues, Highgate is certainly atmospheric and evocative. Even today, people still come here in search of Dracula, believing that this is the cemetery upon which Stoker based Kingstead. But further clues in the novel suggest a small churchyard in a quieter area rather than the large city of the dead of Highgate. Given the way that fact and fiction are mixed throughout Dracula, the fictional Kingstead may well have been a mixture of two real place names: Kingsbury, a suburb to the north of Hampstead, and Hampstead itself. Between these two places is Hendon, a place Stoker may have known well, as his good friend Thomas Hall Caine, the Hommybeg, to whom Dracula is dedicated, lived in the town at the time he was researching his novel.
In the 1820s, there was an incident in Hendon Cemetery in which a vault was opened and a young man went in and cut off the heads of two of the corpses in there, one of whom was his mother. This was very shocking. He was actually taken up in court for it. He explained that he was a medical student and that there was something wrong with the heads of his family, and he wanted to examine his mother's skull to find out what it was. It's clearly and sadly, there was definitely something wrong with him mentally. It's a Mr. Home or Hume was his name, and the bricklayer who was involved in opening the vault was a Mr. Wood.
Again, Stoker may have incorporated these two surnames into the novel. One of the people that enters Lucy's tomb to drive the stake through her heart is her fiancé, Lord Arthur Homewood.
Stoker probably did see an account of it because it was in the Illustrated London News right next to a review of Henry Irving's production of King Lear, which was obviously Stoker's job to keep track of these things. Although it could have given him the idea of opening the vault. It's interesting, but I think it's more of a coincidence than a direct influence on the book. A possible inspiration for the scene of Lucy's exhumation could be Dante Gabriel Rossetti. He had lived a few doors down in Cheyne Walk from Stoker, and Stoker would undoubtedly have heard the story of how he had his wife's coffin exhumed in Highgate Cemetery because he had left a book of his poems in her coffin and then decided that he wanted them back. According to legend, when they opened her coffin, she was beautifully preserved, and her long red gold hair had grown to fill the coffin. This is quite impossible, but it's definitely a vampiric feel to it. The beautifully preserved corpse of a woman with her hair, which was of incredible sexual attraction to the Victorians, still alive and still growing. Of course, Rossetti was the nephew of Polidori, the first vampire author, and this also gave Stoker the inspiration for his short story, The Secret of the Growing Gold, where the hair of a murder victim grows up through the floor.